For this next section, starting on page from 21 till 29, I want you to think about the hound and what does the hound symbolize in this next section. Okay? All right, the mechanical hound slept but did not sleep, lived but did not live, in its gently humming, gently vibrating, softly illuminated kennel back in a dark corner of the firehouse. The dim light of one in the morning, the moonlight from the open sky, framed through the great window, touched here and there on the brass and the copper and the steel of the faintly trembling beast. Light flickered on bits of ruby glass and on sensitive capillary hairs in the nylon-brushed nostrils of the creature that quivered gently, its 8 legs spidered under it on a rubber-padded paws. Montague slid down the brass pole. He went out to look at the city and the clouds and had cleared away completely, and he lit a cigarette and came back to bend down and look at the hound. It was like a great bee come home from some field where the honey is full of poison wildness, of insanity and nightmare, its body crammed with that over-rich nectar, and now it was sleeping the evil out of itself. "Hello," whispered Montague, fascinated as always with the dead beast, the living beast. Nights when things got dull, which was every night, the men slid down the brass poles and set the ticking combinations of the olfactory system of the hound and let loose rats in the firehouse areaway, and sometimes chickens and sometimes cats that would have to be drowned anyway. And there would be betting to see which of the cats or chickens or rats the hound would seize first. The animals were turned loose. 3 seconds later, the game was done. The rat, cat, or chicken caught half across the areaway, gripped in gentling paws, while a 4-inch hollow steel needle plunged down from the proboscis of the hound to inject massive volts of morphine or procaine. The pawn was then tossed in the incinerator. A new game began. Montague stayed upstairs most nights when this went on. There had been a time 2 years ago when he had bet with the best of them and lost a week's salary and faced Mildred's insane anger, which showed itself in veins and blotches. But now, nights he lay in his bunk, face turned to the wall, listening to the whoops of laughter below and piano string scurry of rat feet, the violin squeaking of mice, and the great shadowing, motioned silence of the hound, leaping out like a moth in the raw light, finding, holding its victim, inserting needle, and going back to its kennel to die as if a switch had been turned. Montague touched the muzzle. The hound growled. Montague jumped back. The hound half rose in its kennel and looked at him with green-blue neon light flickering in its suddenly activated eye bulbs. It growled again, a strange, rasping combination of electrical sizzle, a frying sound, a scraping of metal, a turning of cogs that seemed rusty and ancient with suspicion. No, boy," said Montague, his heart pounding. He saw the silver needle extend upon the air an inch, pull back, extend, pull back. The growl simmered in the beast, and it looked at him. Montague backed up. The hound took a step from its kennel. Montague grabbed the brass pole with one hand. The pole, reacting, slid upward and took him through the ceiling quietly. He stepped off in the half-lit deck of the upper level. He was trembling and his face was green-white. Below, the hound had sunk back down upon its 8 incredible insect legs and was humming to itself again, its multifaceted eyes at peace. Montague stood, letting the fears pass, by the drop hole. Behind him, 4 men at a card table under a green-lidded light in the corner glanced briefly but said nothing. Only the man with the captain's hat and the sign of the phoenix on his hat, at last curious, his playing cards on his thin hand, talked across the long room. "Montague?" "It doesn't like me," said Montague. "What, the hound?" The captain studied his cards. "Come off it. It doesn't like or dislike. It just functions. It's like a lesson in ballistics. It has a trajectory we decide on for it. It follows through. It targets itself, hones itself, and cuts off. It's only copper wire, storage batteries, and electricity." Montague swallowed. "Its calculators can be set to any combination. So many amino acids, so much sulfur, so much butterfat and alkaline, right? We know all that." All of those chemical balances and percentages on all of us here in this house are recorded in the master file downstairs. It would be easy for someone to set up a partial combination on the hound's memory, a touch of amino acids perhaps, that would account for what the animal did just now, reacted toward me. Hell, said the captain, irritated but not completely angry, just enough memory to set up in it by someone so it growled when I touched it. Who would do a thing like that? Asked the captain. You haven't any enemies here, Guy? None that I know of. We'll have the hound checked by our technicians tomorrow. This isn't the first time it's threatened me, said Montague. Last month it happened twice. We'll fix it up, don't worry. But Montague did not move and only stood thinking of the ventilator grill in the hall at home and what lay hidden behind the grill. If someone here in the firehouse knew about the ventilator, then mightn't they tell the hound? The captain came over to the drop hole and gave Montague a questioning glance. I was just figuring, said Montague, what does the hound think about down there nights? Is it coming alive on us, really? It makes me cold. It doesn't think anything we don't want it to think. That's sad, said Montague quietly, because all we put into it is hunting and finding and killing. What a shame if that's all it can ever know. Beatty snorted gently. Hell, it's a fine bit of craftsmanship. A good rifle can fetch its own target and guarantees the bullseye every time. That's why, said Montague, I wouldn't want to be its next victim. Why? You got a guilty conscience about something? Montague glanced up swiftly. Beatty stood there looking at him steadily with his eyes, while his mouth opened and began to laugh very softly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days. And as many times he came out of the house and Clarice was there somewhere in the world. Once he saw her shaking a walnut tree. Once he saw her sitting on the lawn knitting a blue sweater. 3 or 4 times he found a banquet of late flowers on his porch, or a handful of chestnuts in a little sack, or some autumn leaves neatly pinned to a sheet of white paper and thumbtacked to his door. Every day Clarice walked him to the corner. One day it was raining, the next it was clear. The day after that, the wind blew strong, and the day after that, it was mild and calm. And the day after that calm day was a day like the furnace of summer, and Clarice with her face all sunburnt by late afternoon. Why is it, he said one time at the subway entrance, I feel I've known you so many years. Because I like you, she said, and I don't want anything from you, and because we know each other. You make me feel very old, and very much like a father. Now you explain, she said, why you haven't any daughters like me if you love children so much. I don't know. You're joking. I mean, he stopped and shook his head. Well, my wife, she just never wanted any children at all. The girl stopped smiling. I'm sorry. I really thought you were having fun at my expense. I'm a fool. No, he said. It was a good question. It's been a long time since anyone cared enough to ask. A good question. Let's talk about something else. Have you ever smelled old leaves? Don't they smell like cinnamon? Here, smell. Why, yes, it is like cinnamon in a way. She looked at him with her clear dark eyes. He always seemed shocked. It's just, I haven't had time. Did you look at the stretched out billboards like I told you? I think so. Yes, he had to laugh. Your laugh sounds much nicer than it did. Does it? Much more relaxed. He felt at ease and comfortable. Why aren't you in school? I see you every day wandering around. Oh, they don't miss me, she said. I'm antisocial, they say. I don't mix. It's so strange. I'm very social indeed. It all depends on what you mean by social, doesn't it? Social to me means talking to you and about things like this. She rattled some chestnuts that had fallen off the tree in the front yard. Or talking about how strange the world is. Being with people is nice, but I don't think it's social to get a bunch of people together and then not let them talk, do you? An hour of TV class, an hour of basketball or baseball or running, or another hour of transcription history or painting pictures and more sports. But do you know, we never ask questions, or at least most don't. They don't just answer they don't just run the answers at you, bing, 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 and us sitting there for 4 more hours of film teacher. That's not social to me at all. It's a lot of funnels and a lot of water poured down the spout and out the bottom, and them telling us it's wine when it's not. They run us so ragged by the end of the day we can't do anything but go to bed or head for a fun park to bully people around, break window panes in the window smasher place, or wreck cars in the car wrecker place with the big street ball. A big steel ball, or go out in the cars and race on the streets, trying to see how close you can get to the lampposts, playing chicken and knock hubcaps. I guess I'm saying, I guess I'm everything they say I am, are all right. I haven't any friends. That's supposed to prove I'm abnormal. But everyone I know is either shouting or dancing around like wild or beating up one another. Did you notice how people hurt each other nowadays? You sound very old. Sometimes I'm ancient. I'm afraid of children my own age. They kill each other. Did it always used to be that way? My uncle says no. 6 of my friends have been shot in the last year alone. 10 of them died in car wrecks. I'm afraid of them, and they don't like me because I'm afraid. My uncle says my grandfather remembered when children didn't kill each other, but that was a long time ago when they had things different. They believed in responsibility, my uncle says. Do you know, I'm responsible. I was spanked when I needed it years ago, and I do all the shopping and house cleaning by hand. But most of all, she said, I like to watch people. Sometimes I ride the subway all day and look at them and listen to them. I just want to figure out who they are and what they want and where they're going. Sometimes I even go to the fun parks and ride in the jet cars when they race on the edge of town at midnight and the police don't care as long as they're insured. As long as everyone has 10,000 insurance, everyone's happy. Sometimes I sneak around and listen in subways, or I listen at soda fountains. And do you know what? What? People don't talk about anything. Oh, they must. No, not anything. They name a lot of cars or clothes or swimming pools mostly and say how swell. But they all say the same things, and nobody says anything different from anyone else. And most of the time in the caves, they have the they have the joke boxes on and the same jokes most of the time, or the musical wall lit and all the colored patterns running up and down. But it's only color and all abstract. And at the museums, have you ever been? All abstract. That's all there is now. My uncle says it was different once. A long time back, sometimes pictures said things or even showed people. Your uncle must be a remarkable man. He certainly is. Well, I gotta be going. Goodbye, Mr. Montague. Goodbye. Okay, let's stop and think about how Clarice is shaping up in comparison. And first, let's talk about the Hound. Any thoughts on the Hound? What do we know about the Hound? Just details. Yeah. He's made out of metal. Okay, this is not a real live being. This is some kind of robot of some sort, right? What else do we know about him? Yeah. Yes, he is programmed to kill, to hunt, to kill. How does he kill them? Did you pick up on that? He doesn't eat them because he doesn't eat. Yeah.
He injects them with morphine.
Yeah, he attacks, captures, injects them with morphine, and then they get thrown in the incinerator to be burned. Right? It's a version of hunting, but it's not. It's much like how real animals would do it, but there can be no pleasure for a robot, right? So it's all based on what a human has programmed him to do, right? So what is Montague worried about? Yeah.
The fact that he's like being kind of threatening towards Montag.
Yeah, he seems to have some kind of predatory instinct regarding Montague. And what's the first thing Montague thinks about, that he's concerned about? That air conditioning vent back at his house, right? So he does have a guilty conscience of sorts. We don't know why. It has something to do with that air conditioning vent, right? And he suspects that maybe this robot dog has picked up on something in his, almost like in his DNA, in his chemical composition, that makes him suspect, right? And he's worried about that. Okay, how about Clarice? How is she different than other people? Yeah.
She doesn't go to school. She doesn't really have many friends.
Yeah. Is Clarice a weirdo? Antisocial? She says she can't go to school because she's antisocial. Is she antisocial? Some of you saying yes, some of you saying no. Why?
Didn't look like it. She was talking to him.
She's talking to Montague super openly, super freely, right? Yeah?
She seems like very social, like with Montag, just not necessarily social in the way that society expects social to be.
Yes, she doesn't fit the mold. She doesn't fit the mold of expectation of how kids her age are supposed to be behaving and acting, right? All right, any other thoughts on Clarice? What about she gives us some feedback about how school is going. Do you notice any, or how school is, not how it's going, because she doesn't go there anymore, but any similarities or thoughts about how school is compared to how it is today? Did anything resonate? Did anything seem like it was fitting with how things are today, or is it totally opposite? Oh my gosh, nobody's asking questions. Nobody has a perspective. She said they all just sit there. Nobody asks questions, at least very rarely, only maybe a couple of them do. That they sit all day long and don't interact and just do what they're supposed to do. Not that we're trying to coerce a rebellion in here by any stretch, right? But it's like her creativity has just been squashed. She's supposed to experience things but not actually participate and be a part of them in any kind of way, right? What about the value of human life? Anything about what she said resonate with you there? People just kill people. Like, seriously kill people. They're either dying in like, what did she say, 10 people in car accidents? Right? And then the other ones just killed each other. And there used to be a time, her uncle says there used to be a time when people didn't kill each other. And think about their recreation. They go to a fun park to bully people around. Bullying is the fun that they have in this culture. Right? Break window panes in the window smasher place. Wreck cars in the car wrecker with the big steel ball. Now that sounds kind of fun. But, you know, when you're talking about just smashing, killing, wrecking for the sake of destruction, there's no creation in this environment. Except the fake stuff that's controlled by the TV in an alternate universe, right? That's happening on the TVs. All right. Does the dog remind you of anything else in our society? What do you think it might be starting to represent? Now, granted, this is all futuristic. It's not saying that it necessarily has to be representing something in our society, because he was writing this in 1950. He couldn't have known what things are going to be like for us in our modern age, necessarily. But does it remind you of anything? Do we have weapons that search and destroy without human physical interaction on the spot? We have robots. What about weapons of war? Do we have anything like this? Anybody know the name for that? No? Really? The droids that we send over, right? Or the drones that we send over that fly over targets and we drop bombs from the drones, right? So somebody doesn't have to physically be there to do it, but it's still a human that's programming that drone to fly over the target and to destroy, right? So who's responsible? Is it the drone, or is it the person controlling the drone, or the person creating the drone? So who's responsible for this dog? Is it the dog itself if it attacks Montag? People who created it? People controlling it? Right? Think about those things. All right.